Okay, we're here at the African Festival with one of our great historians, our great activists, our great fighters for freedom, justice, and equality, the great Dr. Conrad Worrill. It is only befitting we talked to him after last night, where we heard Senator Barack Obama accept the nomination for President of the United States of America for the Democratic Party. Can you give us your reflections, Dr. Conrad, from a historical perspective of what led us to this point and what we need to be doing from today on forward?
Well, what led us to this point is a very long story that goes back to Reconstruction and the passage of the 15th Amendment to the Constitution and the compromise of our voting rights after the period of Reconstruction. It led to this campaign out of the Dixiecrats in the South to strip black people of their rights to vote in the introduction of Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896 that created racial segregation under the law.
Yes, sir.
So in order to understand the beneficiary of the movement, Barack Obama, of this over 156 years of black people's involvement in electoral politics in the United States, one has to understand that history because we started in large numbers in electoral politics as Republicans.
Yes, sir.
So that
was the party of Lincoln, right?
That was the party of Lincoln. And so during that period of 1867, 1868, to the 20th century, we elected more than 20 blacks to the Congress of the United States. We had two blacks who were elected to the U.S. Senate. We had lieutenant governors that served in Louisiana and one other state, I do believe. So this battle around electoral politics, this battle around the vote,
yes, sir,
is a long and bloody battle.
Yes, sir.
And if one doesn't understand that it's a long and bloody battle, this makes it difficult to have the connection to the historical campaign that Barack Obama ran. But pushing forward, fast forward to the civil rights movement that really from 1896 up to 1954, the major campaign of that wing of the movement was to eradicate racial segregation under the law.
Right.
And as an outgrowth of that, to restore the right to vote. And so the Montgomery bus boycott, the battles and campaign in the southern region of the United States, Selma, Birmingham, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, the leadership of Dr. King, the founding of SNCC, and particularly STIC with the sit-in movement and their role, and eventually their role in leadership in demanding that the Voting Rights Act be put on the table, which was eventually passed in 1965.
Right.
So in restoring voting rights to black people who had been disenfranchised, particularly in the South, led to this campaign led by SNCC to break the cycle of fear. So June 16, 1966, Lowndes County, Alabama, the slogan Black Power, announced by Stokely Carmichael and the SNCC leadership, resolved itself around this controversial slogan in the arena of black political power. So a lot of people are not aware that almost a year and a few months after that pronouncement, November 7th, 1967, Richard Gordon Hatchett and Carl Stokes were elected as mayors to two major cities in the United States. Carl Stokes in Cleveland, Richard Gordon Hatchett in Gary, Indiana. And that electrified election of blacks, now black people began to say, wow, if we are the majority in our local areas, congressional and state districts, then we should elect our own people and stop voting these white people in who are not representative. Stop it.
Yes, sir.
The resurgency and the reclaiming of black people's right to vote created, and the positioning the slogan of black power around electoral politics, one could actually say that Barack Obama is the beneficiary of that movement, and that black power is actually being exercised without being said. Now, let's back up.
Yes,
1972, we had the Gary Convention.
Yes, sir.
10,000 of us showed up from all over the United States. National Black Political Convention hosted by Mayor Richard Gordon Hatchett. And we created a black political agenda. Everybody keeps talking about what is the black agenda. Well, we created an agenda. If updated now, it's a 100 and some odd page document that addressed almost every issue at that time that impacted us. But if updated, would still be relevant to our continuing situation and challenges we face today. So 1974, out of Gary, we created the National Black Political Assembly, and we had another convention in Little Rock. 1976, the National Black Political Assembly launched a campaign to draft Congressman Ron Dellers to run for President of the United States.
Wow.
And in Cincinnati, Ohio, before 3,000 people, Congressman Dawson gave one of the greatest speeches in the world to tell us no. So that's sort of a backdrop, because in 1972, Shirley Chisholm announced that she was going to run for President of the United States. 1968, we put forward a campaign with the Friends of SNCC to draft Julian Bond to run as Vice President of the United States at the Democratic Party National Convention that was held right here in Chicago. But of course, in our youthful days, we didn't know that Julian Bond wasn't old enough and qualified to be drafted. But the death of Mayor Daley in Chicago unearthed the idea, the possibility and potentiality of electing a black mayor here in Chicago, because Wilson Frost was the mayor pro tem, and the white boy refused to let him have access to the mayor's office and blocked that, and the compromise went down, and Wilson Frost was appointed to the chair of the powerful finance committee. So out of that, a discussion now emerged in Chicago about the potentiality and possibility of taking this major bastion called the Machine here in Chicago. So Harold Washington ran for mayor in 1977, won 6th ward. One of the wards he won, ironically, was the 6th ward, which is the highest voting middle income ward in Chicago, led by Gene Sawyer. Kind of an irony.
Right.
Of course, the Jane Byrne election, that black people elected Jane Byrne because of the snow crisis we had in the city, and the Landis administration dropping the ball, and black people got behind this white Irish woman, Jane Byrne. As soon as she got in, she tricked black people and went to work against the interests and promises that she had made. And so this period from 1979 to 1983 led to this gigantic movement that elected Chicago's first black mayor in April of 1983. I say all that to say because shortly after that, in 1984, Jesse Jackson, with the assistance of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, traveled all across the United States, popularizing this idea of the potentiality of a black man running for president of the United States. So if you don't have this history, if you don't understand this, then you'll think that Barack Obama's campaign is not connected to the historical contribution of black people and other forces inside the United States to lay the foundation to make this idea possible, palatable with a segment of the white population in the United States who now is accepting this black man, where there's clearly another segment of the population in this country who say they will never vote for a black person for president, most of them inside the Republican Party. So what should we do? Should we be elated? Of course. We have broken another barrier. Black people have been breaking barriers in this country ever since we were captured, introduced, and enslaved in the Western Hemisphere. So this is analogous to Jackie Robinson breaking the racial barrier in Major League Baseball. So now we done broke the big barrier called the presidency of the United States. So once everybody calms down and we see what this means, a real war is getting ready to take place in the streets of America around electing him and actually, in reality, in this runoff, actually putting Barack over the top. So what we really need is a black field operation in the United States.
Yes, sir.
Pretty much like the field operation we had on a local level for Harold Washington in 82 and 83. As a matter of fact, it doesn't even have to be announced. It doesn't have to come off if it's some kind of militant surge within the black community. But definitely there needs to be a black field operation that works aggressively to ensure that we shouldn't take this black vote for granted. The Barack Obama's campaign should not take the black vote for granted.
Right.
In addition to that, we should unearth our agenda. And we should find ways to put on the table those issues that are germane to black people. Whether Barack Obama is for reparations or not, black people are still owed reparations whether he becomes the president of the United States or not. That's my little contribution to the discussion.
Yes, sir. Thank